What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk of the Tundra, a proud partner of the Blue Wire family and the Eurostep Podcast Network. As always, I am your host, Numac, and joining me once again is my trusty co-host, Jordan Tresky. Jordan, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Never better. Living the
Oh,
dream, some might even say. I get to talk
oh,
about all my favorite things, injuries, Aaron Rodgers,
oh.
the Brian Gutekunst as the GM, as a GM. Oh, man. Great times to be had today. But before we get back into the Packers news, couple promotions, obviously. As always, go join Repod if you haven't already. Jordan and I have been over there commenting, talking. I'm getting those listener numbers up, getting those minutes racked up, hoping for a Spotify-esque recap at the end of the year, atop the top leaderboard for most listening time over there. Because I am a sicko, listen to my own podcast. You heard it here first. Yeah, go join over there. It's a growing community, and we're having a lot of fun. So go join Repod and join all the other Repod channels for all the other Eurostep Podcast Network feeds. Additionally, we are having a little meetup. Andrew and Adam are visiting Milwaukee the first weekend in April, and we're having a listener meetup at a TBD location on April 4th, watching a little Bucks, Wizards, and some Brewers, Mets. And we would love to have you guys come and join us. But we need to know how many of you are coming so we can book the appropriate size venue. So if you're interested in coming and you are down to clown, some might say, go over to
Oh no.
gspn.info and fill out the form and let us know you're coming so we can book a place and share a wonderful time. Just a bunch of guys and gals being dudes watching sports. So go over to gspn.info where all the links GSPN related are and fill out the Google form.
Yes, fill out the Google form. Your life depends on it.
That is actually true. If you don't fill out the Google form, you someday might soon die.
This is the
Someday soon,
PSA.
someday far away, but you may die. We're off the tracks already. Jordan, a lot of Packers news this week. A lot of Packers news.
Finally, come on. And guess what? Well, I don't want to play spoiler
You can
alert
play spoiler.
already.
Well, we can just put a little spoiler
A
tag.
lot of Packers news, not a lot of Packers decisions still going on.
We got more news about Aaron Rodgers' bowel movements than we did about his actual decision. I don't know how
Yeah,
that took off or why that took off, but it did.
yeah.
So, but I guess we can probably go in chronological order of news that happened this week. Um, Obviously the scouting combine started on Sunday in Indianapolis. No actual workouts have been done yet. Those start as you're listening this today on Thursday. But all the position groups, I think everybody but wide receivers and running backs. I think maybe tight ends. I forget who's on the last day, but there's like one of the groups that showed up Monday or Tuesday, and then just had all the interviews and things like that. So, but yeah, for the most part, all the position groups are in Indianapolis at this point, and I think the O linemen start today. Now that you're listening to this, with all of their workouts.
Mm.
So I'm trying to find the official one. Yeah, not O linemen. I apologize. O linemen are the last group. D linemen and linebackers start their on-field workouts today, Thursday, and then DBs, punt returners, or place kicking, so kickers and special teams start on Friday. QBs, wideouts, and tight ends start on Saturday, and O linemen and running backs start on Sunday with all of their on the field workouts, and then the next day after those, each group's when they do their bench presses and all their workouts. So a big weekend of football. But
Yes.
as they arrived, started doing all their interviews and such, Brian Gutekunst was in Indianapolis with no coaching staff this year. They have shifted away from that. Matt LaFleur and company did not attend as they opted to stay back in Green Bay and talk strategies and things of that nature. I'm not really sure how much you can strategize before free agency and the draft for your next season, but that's the excuse they gave, and more power to them. But yeah, just Gutey, and he talked to the media. He talked at length to the media, talking about a lot of different stuff. At the top of the docket was obviously Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is coming out of his darkness retreat last weekend, I believe, or last week sometime. I know, Jordan. I'm trying to take it seriously. It's his own
I know,
purview.
I know,
I
I
know.
know.
But what came out of that was that they haven't really talked. Gutey and Rodgers haven't since Rodgers came out of his retreat. And I forget who had said it. I saw it on Twitter, but it made it seem like Gutey and Rodgers haven't really talked at length since the season ended. So it seems like they're just letting Rodgers make his decision and not trying to get an update every single step of the way, and we'll just kind of get there when we get there. So, his biggest thing was that he wanted a deal to be done by March 15th, or he said he, quote, hopes to have a deal done by March 15th, which is when free agency starts. So, I guess, Jordan, what are your thoughts on either the lack thereof discussion between the organization and Rodgers at this point, as well as what do you think we get an answer by March 15th? Which is because Rodgers did say he plans on making a decision sooner rather than later. March 15th is now 14 days away. So,
Yes, we are 2 weeks away
yeah,
from
so
it.
2 weeks. Do you think he makes a decision in the next 2 weeks?
Um, do I think Aaron Rodgers makes a decision in the next 2 weeks? He keeps talking about the decision. Decision. Ah, uh, I just, I would like to say yes just to get this whole thing over with. And I think a lot of people were surprising or back up. When Brian Gutekunst speaks, it's rare. And of course, when you have a star quarterback in the twilight of his career and openly contemplating things out for everybody to see across major platforms and podcasts every week, it just keeps going on and on and on and on. So it's naturally these questions going to be asked every week. And to me, I could see it two ways. Is he bluffing when he says he hasn't really talked to Aaron Rodgers? Probably. But also, I don't think, as we talked about ad nauseum, the decision is not for him to make, in part because of what they agreed to with their contract and all that stuff last year.
Right.
So, yeah, like I find it very believable that they probably have talked and it's been brief about like, well, if you're coming back, this is what we're going to do. We either keep you or we're going to trade you. Give us some places that you want to play at. We'll talk to those teams. We'll keep it hush hush as much as we can. But obviously, that's not going to be the case because it's 24/7 news cycle and, all this stuff. So I don't know. I view it like there was nothing revelatory, obviously, what he said. I don't think he wants to be revelatory anyway, because there is a sense of you still, for what little leverage he has in the situation, he could still hold the cards of like, as we'll get into with his other comments of wanting to keep the door open for Rodgers if that is what he chooses. But the constant, one day it's okay, I think it's pro Rodgers staying. That is if he plays. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many endless opportunities or possibilities and doors that are open of like, this is in play, this is in play, this is in play. That having the actual GM of the Packers say the thing of, I haven't really talked to Aaron since the season ended. It just kind of makes sense why we are where we are, because like it's just up to one person, and the person has to make that decision.
Right. Yeah, I think he does make a decision soon, because I think he's like committing enough to making it soon throughout all of his little media appearances. Yeah, I do agree that he wasn't like Gutey wasn't revelatory in any of his talks, because, like you said, he can't be, because he can't play his cards one way or the other. And there was an interesting tweet I saw from Jeff Darlington, who is just a general ESPN NFL reporter. He said, The situation between Rodgers and the Packers, both publicly and privately, is feeling more like two sides trying to navigate the perceptions of a breakup rather than two sides trying to find a way to continue forward together. And I think that's pretty spot on, honestly, because over the past two seasons, not counting, I'm sorry, including this last season and the two previous off seasons,
Mhm.
to be confusing. Gutey has said over and over again that they want Rodgers back. They've been like they want Aaron Rodgers to be the quarterback of the Packers. They want him there. And then as soon as the season ended, that kind of got walked back to, well, we'll see what happens. We'll see where we are as a franchise, what he wants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's as open and honest as he's going to be up until the decision is made, because he already changed his tune from I think it was either pre-Bears or post-Bears. I think it was the bye week, honestly, when him and LaFleur talked to the
Yep.
media at length about Rodgers. So that's already changing his mind once in the past 6 months. And I think that's really all we can kind of hope for, or not hope for, wait for at this point, is just his decision. He went on Aubrey Marcus's podcast this week, which is where the source of his ball movements came from.
Mm,
All that news.
mm.
But he did have a interesting quote about his decision. So I'm going to read it quickly. Not quickly. I'm going to read it as concisely as I can because it's a long one, but I'm not going to quote.
Concisely as you can.
So this is from Rogers on the podcast. Quote: "It's best for anybody who has an interest in this to for me to make a decision sooner rather than later. I remember before Brett Favre retired, there were times in April and May we weren't sure if he was going to come back because he didn't come to any of the offseason programs. Then in 2008, he actually did retire, and in March said, no, no, no. In June, after OTAs, I actually want to come back and play. That's when he was traded to the Jets, and there's obviously a lot of tension that summer. For everybody involved, directly and indirectly, it's best for a decision earlier. I feel really good about the conversations that are going to be had, that have been had with the important people in my life." So I think like let me pause. Still a quote. I'm gonna jump to the end of it. Um, this is my life. It's important to me. I'll make a decision soon enough, and we'll go down that road, and I'll be really excited about it. So it seems that he's confident and he's gonna make a decision soon. And at least he understands that, or at least is projecting out there that he understands that a decision made before the draft is the best for both worlds. To cue in my Hannah Montana. But it's just, when does that come? Does it come? I'm leaning towards it happens. At which point we'll cover it for you guys. But until then, we'll see. We'll get more just random news reports from. He's close to making a decision. Oh, he might make a
Mhm.
decision today. Like that's gonna be the most annoying part of the process at this point. Is like
Sources
everybody.
tell me the decision is coming in the 11 o'clock hour. Stay tuned here on ESPN Ocho.
That's right. That's right. So, um, I'm trying to see. I don't think we
By the way,
have
what podcast was that you mentioned that he was on?
Aubrey Marcus's podcast. I don't know the exact title, but I can certainly find the exact.
Well, I would like to explain to our listeners out there that Aubrey Marcus is the founder of Onnit, a globally disruptive brand based on a holistic health philosophy he calls total human optimization. That is the
For what it's worth, um, On It isn't exactly a small company.
no.
They were really big into the podcast game, is what they were. They were like
Mhm.
before what are they? The protein bars, who I'm not giving free ads to, that have alliterative name. They were like that company, but like 5-6 years ago, and podcasts were just blossoming. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, one more thing on Rodgers that I'd like to touch on before we move on to some more of Gutey's quotes. This is a screenshot of Rodgers' conversation on our Auburn Marcus's podcast from Tyler Dunn. It says, quote, this is Rodgers speaking. "I've been doubted before. Honestly, I felt in the first year that Coach LaFleur was here in 2019, I felt like at times I was a game manager. I didn't quite understand what we were doing at times on offense. My job was to take care of the football, and I did. Threw 4 interceptions and 26 touchdowns, and we were 13-3, but I felt like there was so much more. Then they drafted my replacement, and then I won MVP twice. I threw 85 touchdowns and 9 interceptions in 2 years. Obviously, there were changes that happened on the team and the coaching staff, and I didn't have my best year playing. There's probably people who think I'm done. I thought I was done before I became MVP twice. There, there would be plenty of inspiration down that road. End quote. I think it's kind of lame that he's he's understanding that he played like crap leading up to LaFleur's tenure as coach and was a game manager in 2019. But then it took him getting a replacement drafted in Jordan Love to actually kick it into gear. Like, he's not really owning anybody. Like, I think he might be thinking he is. Because if you get 2 MVP years out of drafting Aaron Rodgers' replacement, you draft his replacement every single time. Like, if they could, in theory, draft CJ Stroud or Will Levis or whoever they want this year and get 2 more MVP years out of Aaron Rodgers, you do that every time. Like,
This is exactly the thought process I had behind why Love was necessary to begin with.
right.
Because you take as much as painful or as painful as those endings were, those seasons, you still
You had a shot.
yeah, you had a shot. You had a shot. And again, it helped Rodgers kick on this third prime, second. I don't know what you want to call this,
I'd
like
say yeah.
extended his career,
Yeah.
clearly.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I agree with you. I mean, he can view it the way he wants, and he obviously views it in a very different way. But like, it also gives credence to what everybody has said of like, they got LaFleur for him to be a game manager, or sorry, LaFleur comes in, rehauls or overhauls the system, implements how he wants to play, and I think just like the term game manager for a lot of quarterbacks is just very like, it's like a third rail. Like, you don't want to be viewed like that. You want to be viewed as like, your talents are so spectacular that it propels you to. But like, that's the tension that just inherently exists when you have someone as good as Aaron Rodgers has been last year notwithstanding,
Mm-hmm.
and a coach who has a very as much as we haven't really seen that system because it's been a blending of both, but he has a very precise way of how he wants to play.
Right.
And it's like, I don't know, it honestly diminishes the both of them by saying that, because it's just the first year. That's what happens in the first years. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you're not like,
You're
it's a
feeling it out.
read.
You're feeling it
Yeah,
out with the offense.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's just a weird way to, I guess, to put it, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Yeah, I get my thoughts on it already. I don't need to to recite them again. Um, that's really it on Rodgers. Still some comments from Gutey Cup coming, but um, I guess my last question for you on the Rodgers: over under 2 weeks, over under March or before? I guess before after March 14th or 15th.
Well, if he doesn't have the decision now, it's like, okay,
I think he has that. I think he's just wanting to drop it when he's ready to drop it. Like,
yeah,
you give your prediction of before or after, and I'll give mine.
over.
I think he goes before the date, and I think he goes sometime next week because
Mm.
um, this week is the scouting combine. Like, they're all like, everybody's focused on the combine and
Oh,
stuff
I
that
know where
way.
you're going.
But next week's kind of a dull week. The um, what
Does
it's
he,
like a
does he drop it on McAfee?
I don't think he drops it on McAfee. I like. I mean, he might. I wouldn't be surprised if he does. Um, but
Does he drop it on a beach in Tampa Bay?
I doubt he drops it there either. I think it comes out probably from Ian Rappaport or something of what he's doing. Like, I'm sure when we get the announcement, it will be a Packers and Rodgers announcement together. It will be Aaron Rodgers intends to retire. Aaron Rodgers intends to keep playing, but is wishing to move on from the Packers, or Aaron Rodgers is playing and the Packers intend on keeping him, restructuring his contract. Like, there's three kind of options there that I see. Go ahead.
Revised prediction. He goes to Bay Beach Amusement Park, winds howling, off of the river
On the zip and
or
pip.
lake.
The,
Uh,
it's
uh,
it's it's the Bay.
sorry,
That's why it's Bay Beach.
baby. Sorry. He's on the Ferris wheel and he has a camera crew in one pod. He's on another pod. He's announcing his retirement speech or where he's leaving, but the audio is just so choppy that you can't hear what it's
That is quite the prediction. If you nail that, I'll give you your flowers for the rest of time.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think it's next week because there's a lull in NFL talk next week because free
That's
agency
a good shout.
tampering begins March 13th through the 15th, and then the 15th is the new league year, which is when free agency signings are allowed. So I think that next week is just where it's barren NFL news wise. It'll be after the combine's done, before free agency. That's the time I think he does it. So
Yeah.
um, but back to Gutey's comments at the combine, he had no trouble talking about the other quarterback on the roster, Jordan Love. Um, Echoing what a lot of other Packers have said this season, even during the season and in the offseason, that, quote, Jordan Love is absolutely ready to be a starter. And that he, quote, brought an intensity week to week that had not been seen before in the building. Pew, pew, pew.
Yes, you
Jordan,
showed up to OTAs.
Jordan, do you think those are shots fired, or do you think that's just a testimony to Love's work ethic?
I think it is a testimony to Love's work ethic.
I would agree.
I think you don't have the, I mean, I don't know. We're at the point with the Rodgers Love. This is my final, like, it's bleeding into my Jordan Love talk.
Yep.
But, like, any comments made in regards to either one, we're not at the point of like, oh, they're choosing Jordan Love over Aaron Rodgers. It's like, no, that's not where we are anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's more just like this thing has just kind of ran its course. And yeah, he is the successor to Aaron Rodgers, but and you could say all you want about drafting.
Uh,
What?
it's hard to say for sure
Yeah, that is true.
that
That
he
is a
is
good
the Aaron
point.
Rodgers successor.
Yes.
I'm pumping the brakes on your narrative after my narrative got shut down from last week already, which we'll talk about later.
Oh, okay.
So,
Um, but I just think like Jordan Love is a mystery, and there's still so many questions around him going into his fourth year,
yeah.
and we have seen him play so little. And again, there's a lot of criticism tagged at uh charged at Gutekunst for drafting Jordan Love in the first place. That yeah, I would want to talk plenty about a decision that I think was a good one, and saying like this guy deserves to start. We saw palpable changes in his work ethic and just approach to the game and just becoming a professional. That's how I took it. I don't take it as this guy can just throw an 85-yard bomb and flips the birds at Aaron. You know what I mean? I don't think that's how it is.
I think any other comment about Love's like state of being as a quarterback would be concerning given where this train is possibly headed. Like
Yes.
if he's like, yeah, he could be an NFL starter one day, that I'd be very worried if we're going through all this Rodgers and Love debate and he's like, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me. Yeah, I think you're spot on correct that he's hyping up his own draft pick that he's gotten criticized for over the last 4 years. So why not? Um, Moving on. Common theme in Gutey's press conference was injuries and returning players. Listening to the press conference, it seems like David Bakhtiari and Mason Crosby are on track to be back with the Pack next year. How about that for a rhyme scheme? Dropping bars on the Todd podcast.
What do you think of the Crosby comments? Because I think that was talked about a lot.
Gutey said that he thinks he'll have a better year than he had this year because he's not coming off of an injury he had in training camp, and I could see why he.
Which,
okay.
as we went over with grades, he was still pretty good. Like it ended better than it started.
Right.
But
But so we kind of already talked about this with the grades. If he's actually healthy, and you can't confirm health, like you can't, or not confirm, you can't guarantee health moving into the year. Um, but if he can stay healthy and stay healthy throughout the season, I guess I guess 29 or 2021 he had 4 kicks of 50 yards or more in like I say in 2021, and he made 3 of them, as opposed to last year he had 4 kicks and only made one.
mhm,
And we talked about it at length in his grade, in that depending on who the quarterback is, I'm comfortable with that in different ways. I have a different amount of comfort with that. If Rodgers is the quarterback and they're going to be like forcing the ball on 4th down from the 35, 40 yard line, sure, Crosby's ability to kick 55, 60 yard field goals doesn't really matter. He hasn't ever been able to kick them that far in the first place, so we'll go 50 to 55 because he's hung around in that range for most of his career. If Jordan Love is the quarterback and they're a little more reserved on 4th down in the 35, 40 kind of yard line, then I would hope that they're starting to think about a kicker of the future
mhm.
and finding a solid one, even if it is this off season, because if you have a less experienced quarterback, you're not going to be as probably successful maybe in those yard situations all time, where sometimes you just need points. Like,
Mhm.
who knows how consistent Jordan Love is if he plays, like, if he does start from game to game. In some games you might just need 12 points on 4 kicks. Like, you just might need it.
Yeah.
And so it's tough. I wouldn't be upset if he came back at the initial signing. I would also not. I'd probably also say I told you so if he had a bad year from distance again, because it's the writing is already there. It's just how much do they think that he can bounce back from his health as a healthy kicker, as opposed to a maligned kicker this past year.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of my thoughts and feelings.
I think it's all very fair. I mean, he sees him a lot more than we do. We
Right.
always see him in game situations, but the thought process behind it is sound. And it was overlooked that, yeah, he was coming off of leg surgery, and that will certainly affect your kicking power. But that also is a sign of decline,
Mm-hmm.
age. It happens to everybody. So yeah, it'll be something to monitor. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Because either way, there's no comfort in staying with Crosby or starting anew and finding someone that is unproven. But talk about another successor. That's who I'd rather talk about. How do you?
Who's that?
Why isn't ESPN headlining with like, what are the Packers going to do with Mason Crosby? Where's his successor?
It's a wonderful question as to why ESPN is not covering kickers. Um,
I don't know.
this, um, but moving on. Anything else on Crosby? I don't.
No.
Okay. The other name that came up in similar talks, because in order to sign Crosby, they have to do a little bit more restructuring. Um, so I guess we'll start with the one that happened, and that's Kenny Clark's restructure. They restructured his contract today, Wednesday, so yesterday as you're listening to this. But Field Yates of ESPN reported that they converted 13.835 billion of Kenny Clark's 2023 compensation to a signing bonus, and that created $11 million in cap. So they've freed up a lot of cap this offseason already, between Jair, Preston, I think,
Yes.
and then obviously Aaron Jones, and now Kenny Clark. So,
Hmm.
and
Come on
possibly
down. Who's next?
right, and if it's anybody next, it'll be Rodgers, because they said Gutey said that if it's comes back, they're going to have to restructure his contract in some way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
So, um, another tally for the cap is a myth crowd, because the Packers were in cap hell all off season long until they started restructuring these things. So I personally do think the Pied Piper eventually comes, but it doesn't seem to be this offseason if they're going to be
Yeah.
under the cap and have some room to play with free agents. So yeah, I don't really have any strong feelings on Kenny Clark's restructure. Just happy it happened. But the bigger news, I think, is that it was reported that they are working to get David Bakhtiari's contract restructured as well. Gutey said that during the press conference. So that's pretty important. Like Bakhtiari was good this year
It's a
when he was
big
healthy,
one.
and when if he's an All Pro when he's healthy, if I'm all for him being the left tackle for whichever quarterback they have, moving forward. So, do you have any thoughts on Mr. Bakhtiari?
It's interesting. Certainly between the restructure talk and the fact that he'll be back, you
Yeah,
kind of would have thought maybe this guy's tied to Aaron Rodgers' hip, but he still could be
yeah.
because that's where we are. But
I'd be really interested to see how that plays out. Just like Bakhtiari's comments, kind of stuff. Like, is Bakhtiari willing to take a restructure if Rodgers isn't back? Like,
Mhm.
I don't think it runs that deep, truthfully. But like you said, they've been best buds for a while.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, as you said, it's when he was healthy and it was touch and go for the first couple of weeks, but he was a very productive and
Yeah,
really anchored that line as he always has. So it was good to see him return to his form. Um, but yeah, that's a big contract, and in order to make any moves, whether to keep this thing going or pivot in a different direction, sacrifices have to be made. And
yeah,
we know that the Packers will turn over every stone that they can to restructure contracts and find cap space.
they have to.
Yes, that is
Yeah, like they.
urgency is the key.
Yeah. Um. Alrighty. So a couple more comments about the line. I guess one more comment about the line. Um. Goody said that he believed that Zach Tom's best position coming out of college was center, which is an interesting development
Mm.
considering he didn't play any center last year in his backup roles. Maybe something to keep an eye on, depending on how they want to move forward at center with Josh Myers. My brain is failing me. I'm now not confident in that's his name, and I feel
That is his name.
okay. I thought that's his name, but as Jordan and I talked pre-pod, it's been a day, and both
Oh yeah.
both of us have a little brain fog going on right now. So, but yeah, if Josh Myers is just doing okay in the coming season and training camp, we'll see how that runs, and maybe they just shift Zach Tom to center full time. I don't know. That's like a that's just something that we should keep in mind should something happen
Yes.
soon or in season.
Yeah.
Little earmark on that.
Little yeah, that's a file this away for down the line kind of thing.
That's right. File away for later. But I believe that's all we've got for newsy stuff, right? Or am I missing
I
something?
thought I saw one more thing, and you might have to vamp for me.
Vamping.
Vamping, checking Packers follows because I believe
I'm doing a great job vamping. I said vamping and then didn't say anything else. So
vamping, vamping,
we're trying our best over here.
vamping. Safety, safety. Uh, Gutekunst had some very
Did I
um.
miss this?
You might have missed this.
I might have missed this.
Um,
Safety, a very important position coming up, considering that they're kind of crap at, at every position. We
yes.
got some mailbag questions about it later, so we'll touch on the position momentarily. But
This is probably from Andy Herman. I'm already forgetting.
that's
But
okay.
he basically just intimated that um Adrian Amos is likely gone.
Oh, did he?
Uh yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
That
And that safety was gosh. I should have had this pre-pod. Um, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. I'm finding it. No,
This
that's not
is
what
this
I'm
is
doing.
from uh a writer for Packers Talk, Zach Upchurch. Um, During his press conference in Indy, GM Brian Gutekunst dropped a few hints that implied Amos may be done in Green Bay, including alluding to creative ways the Packers can field their best five in the secondary. So, um, yeah, Andy Herman. Here you go. I think I got Andy Herman's tweet for you. One of the things that went a bit under the radar amongst all the chaos today was Gutey stating the secondary is a bit unsettled. Quote, "We have a couple of safeties that are moving on."
Yes,
So
boom. There we go. Thank you. Oh my God.
we made it there. Hey, we got there. We got there. Um,
Yes.
Adrian Amos, Rudy Ford, and Dale Levitt are all free agents and may not be back. So definitely interesting. But we have
Very
a couple
interesting.
mailbag questions surrounding the safeties. So let's hop right in the mailbag. Thank you guys all for submitting your questions. We do appreciate it, especially during the off season. First things first, this one is from Mater in the Discord. If you want to submit some questions, you can join the Discord, and that's a great place to do them. There's a whole channel just for mailbag questions. So we'll read Mater's up first. He has two questions, and I think they're separate, so we'll just use them separately. Where do you expect the Packers to expend the most resources this offseason? Mainly draft, but also if they have opportunities to add in free agency. I'll let you start if you want, but I think it
Hmm.
plays off of what we just talked about.
Safety is certainly one of them, if not the biggest, because Darrell Savage is the only one under contract. Um,
Correct.
yeah, I think safety for sure.
I
For
think
sure.
I think that is the position they um target most in free agency. I don't know if
Yes.
they go pretty deep into it in the draft. I think they will draft one. Um, but as we talked about on our little mini preview of the draft, um, if Brian Branch is there at 15, yeah, 15, who knows if they might take him? But I was doing some more reading. It seems like he's more of a slot corner than a true safety. Like I guess true safeties are pretty shallow in this draft and not the
Yeah.
strongest class. So um, it'll be interesting to see how they navigate that and if they try to make Brian Branch into a um, make Brian Branch into a true safety or just play him as a slot corner and kind of figure out that going forward. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, overall, I do think it's safety because that's like the last true need on that defense. Like we need an edge rusher for sure to go opposite of Rashawn Gary to be like super powerhouse rushing the passer offense or I'm sorry defense. But I think of like positions on the defense that are actively a negative right now, it is only safety. Like I think that's just the major hole they have right now. So I think that's
Yeah,
they spend the most resources to shore up.
it's like free agency is mainly um who could help us for the Green Bay Packers in 2023.
Yeah.
Draft is obviously, and as they have proven time and time again, they don't view it as, hey, we're drafting you because we think you're going to be, hitting the ground running and you're a starting quarterback or whatever position you play. They view the long term play with the draft
Hmm.
as you should.
Yeah.
Free agency is always about the immediate help, and yeah, you mentioned that point of like safety is always a position that they usually tend to go veteran, experienced guys over, Savage or Clinton Dix way back when. Like those have panned out or started hot and then cooled considerably.
Hmm.
So I think they just want to find some kind of anchor back there to kind of just
Right.
balance out everything.
Right. No, I agree. I agree. Also from Mater, What position do you think is going to have or see the most drop off in performance compared to this past year? So, which position group is
Ooh,
going to perform worse than they did in 2022?
that's a good question because
Because they were all like average, right? Like none of them
yeah,
performed up to their potential. And if they,
I found it already.
okay,
Sorry,
go ahead.
kick return.
You think it's significantly better than it was last year?
No, I think it drops off.
You do.
Yeah, if they don't get Nixon back.
I think they bring him back. Like I don't think they're if they don't bring him back, I think the fans might riot. Cuz like he's been
I don't know.
the only like competent kick returner they've had in years. And they it finally showed up like a facet of the game that they've been so poor at for a decade.
I don't know.
I mean,
I don't
I agree
know.
that it's tenuous, but I think they bring Keyshawn Nixon back if his sole purpose on the team is kick returning,
I think they
which
do
it
too,
isn't.
but
Which it isn't. He can be
but
a
what if some team just is like, hey, we're gonna give you $5 million?
I guess.
Don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know. I think they bring him back. Like I'm pretty confident they do. I switch said that would not be my answer. Um, this is a good question from Mater because I have a few different thoughts, but none of which are good because it's a downer question. Like the real answer, I think, is quarterback because given my take on how I think Rodgers is progressing as a player and trending downward, if they keep Rodgers, I don't know if he performs above what he performed at last year. And I'm also not confident enough to say Jordan Love could surpass what Rodgers did last year. Like
I am.
I think what'd you say? Yeah, I know you are. Um, I just think he's good. I think he'll succeed in the NFL. I don't want to set expectations high enough that he'll will surpass Aaron Rodgers' average year his first year as a starter. I think that is a lofty expectation.
Well,
Like that'd be like making the playoffs would be a good year. Like I think that would be him surpassing what Rodgers did. I don't know if he has that capability at this point, just because we don't know. And
yeah.
that's like that's essentially my safe bet as a guess because it's the most realistic option, I think. Um, but it very well could be the um the wide receivers too. If they don't
In
have
what way?
if Jordan Love's there and he's not throwing the ball well, then they'll suffer as well. But um, actually, you know what? I apologize. I'm gonna backtrack because I'm getting into a part of the argument that I realize I don't agree with because it's a different part of the offense. I'm gonna say the run game, but not the running backs. If they lose Big Dog and Alan Lazard, they will see a significant drop off in the run game.
I was also going to say my first answer before Nixon was going to be running back because if you move on from Rodgers, what is the game plan for
Right,
every opposing defense?
right. To stop the run, essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Let's
yeah,
test them out.
yeah. I
Let's make
think
him prove it.
yeah. I'll say quarterback just because of the nature of what they're going through. But then, as a result, running back too. Even
Yeah,
though I think Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon are good running backs, I think they if they lose key blockers in Mercedes Lewis and Alan Lazard, it makes their outside run game a lot more difficult.
yeah.
Okay. Um, our trusty friend John submitted a question, a fun one at that. Not fun, but an interesting one. What are your thoughts on the Rams proposing a new rule to make roughing the passer penalties reviewable during the NFL competition committee meetings this past Sunday? What are your thoughts, Jordan?
Well, I think it's interesting. Do I think it opens up a can of worms that makes it even more like it could very well become in or go into like what is a catch kind of territory. Yeah, I mean,
Right, I agree.
that is as much as you want the fair, honest call every time, it's a judgment call all the 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And what looks good in the moment when you see thousands and thousands of replays of it. The officials can't see that, but they see what happened in the moment and be like, that looks like an offense or offense, roughing the passer, or that doesn't look like one. And it's like, there's merit to either sides. So I don't know. I just think it's going to further create that wedge of what people see at home on TV in every game broadcast constantly versus what people don't do or do not see in the stands because
Yep.
there are little men out there when
Yeah.
you're way up in the
Yeah.
nosebleeds in the
You're
mezzanine.
100 feet away, minimum, like minimal 100 feet away.
Yeah. Yeah. Think of being at the top of Arrowhead Stadium and
Yeah.
seeing a penalty like that and like, oh, that looks fair.
Just get your
Yeah,
binoculars out.
it's like, oh, what? Patty? Is that Patty on the ground?
I
Yeah,
need to know why you became Irish.
I don't know.
Because he said
Patty. Um,
no, I'm in total agreement with you. I think that while it does need to be re, I think it needs to be hashed out again as to what roughing the passer actually is.
yeah,
I don't think it's a good idea to put it into a review because at that point it becomes a lot like the block charge in the
yes.
NBA where
Oh my God, if they,
it's exactly what it would become because nobody would really know. It's a judgment call at that point. It's solely a judgment call, and the talks around the changing of the rule, per what was her name, Judy Batista of the NFL Network, said this conversation was centered around the sling versus the slam. The slam being like your typical body slam you'd see on like WWE Friday Night SmackDown, and then the sling being like the rotation that you're whipping a quarterback to the ground. Like the latter isn't a penalty and is a natural progression of the play, but a picking up and slamming is not. And so I think that's fine. I think the biggest issue teams probably have with it is like forcible, quote unquote, forcible blows to the head and linemen getting pushed into quarterbacks' legs or blocked into their legs. Because, like, yeah, if a guy just dives at a quarterback's legs uninterrupted or unprovoked, essentially, then yeah, that's a penalty. He shouldn't be going after the quarterback's legs. That's a dangerous play. Shouldn't be clotheslining the quarterback. That's a dangerous play.
Mhm.
But if you're a edge rusher or an interior D lineman and you get like um, chipped as like an interior D lineman into the quarterback into his legs, that's not your fault. Like that you got pushed into the quarterback. Same idea as if you're falling and you get the quarterback's helmet as you go to tackle him. Like I don't think that's really a necessary penalty. Like the forceful blows to the head are important when they're like vicious sacks when you're tackling the guy around his neck and head. Like that's not a safe
Yeah,
play. So I think there is. I get the idea of wanting to do that, but I think it is a very slippery slope, and you're opening up an entire can of worms, like you had said. And you're driving a wedge between what the ref actually saw and what we can see in 4K Ultra HD and replays at home.
yeah,
And everything looks worse in slow mo. Like it just does.
yeah.
And so yeah, it's just I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's unfortunately just the way the game is refereed now, something that we have to come to terms with, and that at some point each fan base is probably going to benefit and um be at the butt end essentially to make a contrast of those type of
Mhm.
calls. Like it's just the way of this NFL we live in.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think if they go for it, I'd be fine with it, but I think it would throw a big old can of gas on NFL discourse and refereeing
yeah.
to sum up my thoughts. Um, Shift to our good buddy Ty. Ty asked a question. Might need to do a tiny bit of little on-air research for this one just to think of who we want to play. But he asked, all of the focus is rightly, in his opinion, on the pick compensation for Aaron Rodgers. But who is a current player in a potential deal that you'd be really excited to be involved in the deal. So not thinking about the draft compensation, but rather the actual players that are in the NFL right now. Who would you be excited for to join the team as part of the deal? Can't say Darren Waller anymore because according to the Athletic today, the Raiders, Josh McDaniel, and their GM have come to agreement as to not trade for Aaron Rodgers because they said they have plenty of holes on their team that they need to stock up with draft folks, people in the draft, than to trade those away for a player. They don't think they're close enough to competing to trade for Aaron Rodgers, essentially. So,
Mhm.
number 7, as I got so in love with last year and trading up for that, is now out the window. But and so is Darren Waller to go with it. So, who are some other players you'd like to see draft or not in a deal to come to the Packers should they trade Aaron Rodgers? I have a couple. If you want me to go first,
Go first, yeah.
I would love one Elijah Moore. Would be a big fan. A big fan. Him. I know like Corey Davis is another one they thought about trading, but I'm not too excited by him. I'm trying to think of who else we had suggested for people to come over. Do we say maybe the Niners? But I don't think he wanted to go to the Niners, right? He said he didn't want to go to the Niners.
I no, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
When
he
he was
said
playing
when he's
golf.
playing golf, and this is a sentence solely for Adam McGee. So Adam, I hope you're listening. When Aaron Rodgers skirted his handicap at Pebble Beach and won that program,
Mhm.
just so he could raise one trophy in February in the last decade. But that's neither here nor there. Um, yeah, I'm gonna let you mull over a couple, but my initial one is Elijah Moore. Would love a slot receiver to give to Jordan Love to a good slot receiver to give to Jordan Love.
Yes. Darren Waller was very up my alley.
Yeah,
And so to have that option get taken away,
it is
for
unfortunate.
shame, for shame.
I think
Um,
anybody I want to trade for, I think I want to bolster the offense with, because history tells us they're not going to draft an offensive player to help out Jordan Love in the
mhm.
first round,
So they
likely.
would rather draft defensively.
Right. So I would rather get a ready now player for the offense to help it succeed than the defense.
That's where it gets tough of like,
Who has stuff and who's willing to trade for him?
yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to.
Jets are just like opening their door to be like,
Ooh.
here, let's go.
I don't think he'd ever agree to go. Um, but the Commanders need a quarterback. Yeah,
Oh,
I just don't think he'd ever agree to go. Um, but Brian Robinson or Antonio Gibson, I'd take for a running back for. Like that'd make us a pretty stout running back team, and maybe that changes. Well, that wouldn't even be an option because I don't think you'd take one back because they have AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. But um, looking at their receiving core, would not hate to get Curtis Samuel or Jahan Dotson. Like
or Terry McLaurin.
I don't think they trade. I don't think they
I know,
trade
I know, I
Scary
know.
Terry, but one
No.
of Curtis Samuel or Jahan Dotson would be pretty fun. Like Curtis Samuel had a pretty good bounce back year last year after being kind of in limbo his first few years in the NFL. I don't think they trade Jahan Dotson either, but I'd be fine with that. Like if that's the player that's coming back, they need one. Um, if the Falcons want to take a swing on Aaron Rodgers, I don't know why they would because they're further away than the Raiders are. I take one Kyle Pitts. Um, I'm
Oh,
just trying to think, right? Because they hate him. They despise that man. Trying to just think of other trade worthy teams. The Titans, maybe. I'm trying to think. It really isn't. They don't.
they made their intentions known that they are keeping Ryan Tannehill as their quarterback.
I would advise they don't, but go ahead. But they also like have Malik Willis. I don't know if why they would trade for Rodgers. They drafted a quarterback last year, kind of thing. Like it just kind of kicks the young quarterback replacing Aaron Rodgers can down the line. Um, yeah, I don't think they trade Traylon Burks, which is a tragedy because I really want him for the the Packers last year. Um, so yeah, I think to answer Ty's question, it's just Elijah Moore of the teams that are rumored to have trade for Aaron Rodgers. Like it's the Jets at this point,
Yeah,
and I would take one Elijah Moore in the trade. If the
it's
Colt,
yeah.
well, I wonder if the Colts would trade for Aaron Rodgers and just keep pushing that.
Who is their coach again?
Not Jeff
Oh, it's the Shane
Steichen.
Steichen.
Yeah,
Steichen.
not Jeff Saturday.
But looking.
Nope.
He has a very Dragon Ball Z. Uh,
I guess. Um, a couple wide receivers that they have, and it could be any wide receiver too, or not. It doesn't have to be wide receiver. That's just what I think would they benefit from on offense. Um, wouldn't hate one of Michael Pittman Jr. or Paris Campbell. Like, give me one of those guys. If they want to send a safety over here, that would be
then Jonathan Taylor. I think that's pretty good. Throwing it out there.
just have two stout running backs and Jonathan Taylor and
We'll make
Aaron
it
Jones,
work.
and then just have AJ Dillon be our third down back or something.
AJ Dillon, you're a tight end now.
That's
That's what I would say.
But get at the end of the line, buddy. So, yeah, there's Ty's question. Tommy and Logan had similar questions, so I'll read Tommy's and then I'll read Logan's as well. Tommy asked, "What are your thoughts on the Packers secondary going into 2023? Seems like they are weak at safety, as we mentioned, and strong at corner. But even their strength at corner, there are questions about fit and who can play in the slot." And then Logan had mentioned taking on to Tommy. Is Razul safety viable? Does it help or only complicate matters? So I just had this little epiphany, this little brain blast like I'm Jimmy Neutron. What if you draft Brian Branch at 15? And if he excels at slot corner, throw him in the slot, keep Eric Stokes and Jair on the outside, and then throw Razul at safety. Like, just see how it works. Because at this point, you're kind of playing who, like slot corner carousel match, like musical chairs essentially. Who's gonna go there week to week? Like Jair is almost certainly gonna be on the outside every week, covering hopefully the number one option. But if they can draft a good slot corner, then why not do that and then move Razul to safety? Like, I think he would be good. I think he would just need to improve on his tackling ability. But I don't. I see the vision is I guess where I'm going with this. In that,
Yeah.
I don't think it'd complicate matters. It would only complicate matters if they don't draft somebody to play slot corner.
Yeah. That's where it's all about just getting your best players on the field
Mm-hmm.
at this point. And there are pitfalls with that, as we've seen with the start of basically before Stokes got hurt. It wasn't easy for Razul Douglas either. Um, on top of Stokes struggling, God, uh, before he got hurt too. So it was not the best, or what you wanted from the first however many weeks that was. But again, I would just fall on the side of you're going to put your best players out there and you try to make it work however you can. And you're going to exhaust all options. I mean, especially if the Packers, as much as they are creating cap space and stuff like that, what if they don't get like a Von Bell, who I've seen as like a theoretical target as a
Mm-hmm.
for safety, or that experienced safety in free agency? So you do have options internally. I don't know. I don't know. I think, but I like the brain blast. I like the
Thanks.
epiphany of just getting. You did like a very like turn the camera.
Um, yeah, I just think like Razul had a okay year and definitely had some penalties and I guess had a we'll say fine year. Like I think our grades kind of mentioned that wasn't good, wasn't great, kind of had a regression based off of his breakout year at the Packers. And he only played let's see, 2 snaps at at free safety this past year. And so, as opposed to 100 and just about 200 at slot corner and 612 out wide. So I definitely think if they decide to do that, it'd be a new adventure for him. But I don't think he's incapable of succeeding there.
Yeah.
I think he would be able to do it just fine and be able to succeed in hawking down those balls.
Yeah.
But that'd be my hope. It would
Yeah.
it would mean that he has to learn, and the rest of the defense has to learn their zone handoffs a lot better than they did last year, particularly
yes.
Razul. Like that'd be the biggest thing is that if they do that, um, they just have to learn it better because that was the downfall of last year's defense was they just couldn't they couldn't do it, and they started to do it towards the end of the year, but it was not consistent whatsoever. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that would just be the biggest thing. So that wraps up all of our questions. I'm pretty sure. Let me double check the little list here, and I think that's it. Jordan, do you have anything else you'd like to touch on, Packers news wise?
No, no, I do not.
All right,
I
fair
thought
enough.
there was. All right. I thought there was something else, but now I can't. I couldn't think of it. But that's why I will say no, Your Honor.
I am by no means honorable, but thank you. Um, all right, couple of promotions to get to. As always, folks, check out the rest of the GSPN podcasts on our network and the Blue Wire Network, obviously. Um, Ty and Rohan dropped an episode on Monday. Will the Bucks ever lose again? Live score update coming to you fast and furious, some might say. As I vamp because I am slow in pulling up the actual score. They are playing tonight against the Orlando Magic and are currently up 10 at halftime.
Mm,
76-66. So, will the Bucks ever lose again? Who's to say?
who's to say
Who's to say?
that
Uh,
Rohan and Ty boys are back again? I don't know what that was.
it's all right. It's all right. So yeah, go check out Monday's episode of the Euro stuff if you haven't already. It's good stuff. Um, it's that time of year. It's March officially now. Spring training is kicked off for the Milwaukee Brewers. They've played 3 games as of now, I believe, or 3, 4, depending on how you split up the days of when they do. They split the team essentially between their 40-man rosters. Um, and the Cruising for a Bruising fellas, Adam McGee and Andrew Snyder, talked about just that spring training action in general, as well as the new pitch clock, which has been amazing. If you haven't watched a game of baseball lately, um, it's fast. Games are about 45 minutes, half hour faster than they were at this point in spring training last year.
Whoa.
It's good. It's watching the game is actually intriguing and not lulling into a slumber. So they also touched on their experience of their playback of the 2018 Brewers NLCS run. So they just did game 1 on Monday. They talked about Brandon Woodruff's iconic homer in that podcast. And come join us for other playbacks for games 2 through 7. It is a mystery of how that series turns out. So come watch along with us and hang out, watch some baseball before real baseball starts in a month from today, actually. So,
Yes.
and do you and Adam have an episode of 1 and 6, or I don't think you do. Looking at anything,
Not yet.
not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
So as this is out, we should be recording later today.
Well,
I
there
think
you
that's
go.
what it would be.
You heard it here
Yes.
first, folks. Check your feeds.
Exclusive.
Check your feeds for that. And then make time for this. Touched on the um new Netflix series Full Swing for a follow along of, I think it's the golfers. It is golfers, but
Yes, it is. Yeah.
it does focus on the PGA Tour, and I think touches on Live. looking at the episode description. So, if you've watched Drive to Survive, the F1 series that Netflix did, this is in a similar vein, but for golfers. So, I'm excited to watch it. I haven't watched it yet, but I am intending to quite soon. So yeah, go check it out and then listen to the make time for this episode about it. And as always, like, subscribe, hit that smash that like and subscribe button. That was a horrendous call to action. But yeah, leave a review, 5-star review, all that stuff. Go over to GSP.net info for all the pod links. Fill out the Google form to come hang out with us on April 4th to watch some sports, have some brews, hang out, and be merry. I don't think I have anything else for you guys. As always, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next week. Jordan, thank you.
Thank you.